Hello students. So today we are going to study about chapter 10, which is disaster management. Let's quickly get into this. So agenda of the day, we are going to study about what is disaster management, what are the types of disasters, and we will learn about one disaster in detail and practice questions on the basis of that. And then we will quickly summarize what we did in the class. So what is a disaster? I want to ask this question with all of you. So a disaster is basically a sudden event that causes loss of life or property or even both, right? Now it can be a short term or a long term disaster because no one knows when will the disaster happen. And also what we can do as people is we can just prepare for it so that not a lot of people die because of that, right? So let's move forward. Now, we know what is disaster. Now, I want you to know what is a disaster management. Now, how can we deal with that disaster? There are three ways in which we can deal with the disaster. Number one, we can prepare before it happens, right? We don't know when a disaster will happen, but what we can do is we can prepare so that not a lot of loss happens, right? Then we can respond to it after it happens. One way of responding to a disaster is once the disaster has happened, how we respond to it, what actions do we take to prevent the damage, then what can we learn or recover from that disaster. Okay, suppose if one disaster has happened, now what learnings have we taken from that event so that in future if there is something of that similar happens, then what how can we prepare for it. Now broadly there are two types of disasters. One is natural and man-made disasters. One is natural disaster and the other one is a man-made disaster. Now disasters caused by nature are called natural disasters, and disasters which are caused by humans are called human disasters. Humans have no control over natural disasters, and that's the reason they are called natural. And humans, when humans have a control over them, they are called man-made disasters. Now a classic example can be when earthquakes happen, humans have no control over it, right? So they are called natural disasters. Disaster in case of a pollution, suppose of a pollution, if a disaster happens because of that, that is called man-made disaster. Natural disasters are usually very long term, but man-made disasters are not very long term and they are mostly technological type. What we can do is we can prevent by being more, more aware or alert about things, like a chemical accident. Now I want you to carefully look at these pictures and just understand and try and distinguish as to which kind of disaster is it. Is it a human natural made disaster, natural disaster, or a man made disaster? Okay, now some disasters are caused by both, that is natural causes and man-made causes. And today we are going to study about one such disaster, which is also called a famine. Now, what is a famine? Let's look at it more. Okay. I want you to now take 10 seconds. You can even pause the video. You can quickly look at this video and just tell me, like, just write down in your notebook, what do you see? Or what do you think can be the cause of this disaster? Like this is a picture from a disaster which is called a famine. What do you see in the picture and what do you think must have caused this? किसकी वजह से हुआ होगा ये, right? Take 10 seconds. You can write in your notebook. Okay, we will move forward now. Now let's understand a famine in more detail. Famine is a severe shortage of food and water. Severe means very much, बहुत ज़्यादा, and shortage means कमी. जब किसी चीज़ की बहुत ज़्यादा कमी आ जाती है और बहुत ज़्यादा कमी आती है, और यहाँ पे जिस चीज़ की हम बात कर रहे हैं that is food and water. Causing people to die from hunger is called a famine. Now here, if the food and water which is not available to people, if they die because of that, that is called famine. Okay. Now, just look at these two pictures very carefully, observe them. You see that the kids are waiting for food because they are hungry during a famine. Write down three words that come to your mind when you see these pictures. What are the three words that come to your mind? Take 5 seconds to write them in your notebook. You can even pause the video. Great. Let's move forward. So let's understand more in detail what is food shortage and water shortage. When too little food is available or not available at all, we say that the food is in shortage. Similarly, with water, when water is not available or too little of water is available, we say that the water is in shortage, right? Okay, so let's understand the reasons for food shortage, and we will then understand the reasons for water shortage also. Now, broadly, if you see, the reasons are divided into two categories, that is natural causes and human made causes or man made causes. And then we will understand each of these in detail. So, here let's understand natural causes in detail. There are four subcategories to it. One is drought, when there is no rainfall available, so there is no agriculture and there are no crops, right? Fasal hi nahi uga sakte because there is no rainfall only available. You all know how important rainfall is. So that is a natural disaster, that natural cause for food shortage. Then sometimes there is too much of rainfall available. So much water is available that the crops only are washed away. फसल ही बह जाती है. Then in that case, the flood happens. I'm sure you all must have seen flood in Mumbai, so you all can relate it very clear nicely. Next is temperature change. Now you all know that a certain amount of temperature is required for crops to grow. अगर उससे बहुत कम हो जाता है और बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाता है, that is too hot or too cold of temperature happens, then in that case the crops do not grow properly. Sometimes the crops are also attacked by pests like rats and locusts. So they eat away all the crops, and that's why no food is left. And that eventually causes to food shortage. So these are the four natural causes that we have discussed. Now let's look at the man-made causes. Majorly, there are these man-made causes. Number one is war. When there is a war happening, when so many people are fighting, all food is sent to the armies, so no food is available with ordinary people to eat, and that's the reason they experience a food shortage. Now this is something that is not natural, we have caused it because we have um, caused the war also. So that's why too much of fighting and bombs damaging the field. When wars happen, it happens in large fields or open spaces. A lot of fields get lost because of that. Food becomes too expensive to buy during the war. Okay, so this is one example. Overpopulation. Now food is definitely available, but there are so many people in the world to eat, right? So too little food but too many people to eat, right? So that overpopulation is also one of the reason why food is shortage. Then fertilizer. Sometimes what happens, to protect the crops, we use a lot the chemicals, like a lot of chemicals are used in the fields. They are called fertilizers. जब chemical use करते हैं उनको fertilizers कहते हैं with the soil. So this destroys the soil and eventually the crops. इसकी वजह से food shortage हो जाता है. Next is climate change. Now you saw that natural maybe climate change, temperature change tha, but here we are talking about the pollution. Now who are the ones who are causing the pollution? We, right? So pollution is definitely in the man-made causes, right? So let us understand about the causes of water shortage. One is the natural causes and then the man-made causes. Number one, drought. Drought matlab सूखा पड़ जाना. When there is no rainfall or too little rainfall, that's when the water shortage is there. Then floods. Too much of water. Now you'll say, Didi, too much of water is available. Why is there shortage of water? Now this water which is there, it gets into the clean water and it mixes up with the clean water, and that's the reason the whole water becomes dirty, unfit to drink. And that's the reason a lot of floods, they cause water shortage, right? Then there is deforestation. You all know that cutting off trees or cutting off plants and forest is called deforestation. Now forest helps a lot in preserving water. They help because the roots of the for trees, they hold the water intact, right? And that's the reason if you cut trees, the water only is washed away. Now, reasons for water shortage. One is man-made causes. Now, let's look at the man-made causes. Number one is overuse. Very, very common. Overuse is when we waste a lot of water. So, there is water shortage, right? पानी की कमी हो जाती है जब हम waste करते हैं. Now, what are the ways in which we use a lot of water? We leave the tap open when it is not in use. We take too much of water to take a bath. So, that's when we are using a lot of water. Then there is pollution. Pollution causes clean water to become poisoned by chemicals, so no clean water left for drinking. So a lot of drinking water which is available, it is also poisoned by the chemicals which are there in the pollution. So that's the reason these are man-made causes. If we can reduce the pollution, then we can reduce the water scarcity also. Okay, now let's look at the ways in which we can save water. Which one do you think is the best way to save water, and which way do you think is something that you can contribute in water preservation? Number one is reduce, reuse, and third method is rainwater harvesting. Number one, reduce is the reducing the amount of water that you're consuming. So when the water is not in use, suppose you can close the water tap when it is not used. After you bath, you can wash vegetables. Use the water to water your plants, right? So you can reuse a lot of water. Lot of water that is available, you can reuse it. Maybe to wash clothes or vegetables, or maybe you can water your plants, right? A lot of water is available when you take bath or wash vegetables now, that you can use in this way. So this is one way. Next is, when it rains, you can maybe collect water in buckets. You can wash clothes or plates, or even water your plants, and you can also use it in washrooms. So this is one of the ways of rainwater harvesting. And of course it is not fit for drinking, so you cannot drink it. So just, what are the ways in which you can use the rainwater? Just think and brainstorm on that. Next, now when do we say that a famine has happened? How do we identify that the famine has happened? Now, one way is when 20% of the population is experiencing food shortage. If you see this triangle, famine is declared when you face these three things. Okay, number one, when 20% of the population is experiencing food shortage. Number two, 2 out of 10,000 people die every day. If out of 10,000 people, 2 people are dying every single day, then we say that the famine is happening. Then malnutrition. Malnutrition is when people do not get the right amount of food that is needed for their body. So if 30% of the population is malnourished, we say that the famine has happened. Okay. Now, I want you to pause the video here and do these questions in your notebook. You can just take, it will not take a lot of time. You can solve these questions in your notebook and just pause this video right here. Okay. I'm waiting for 10 seconds. Okay. Now let's look at the answers. Now let's look at these this table. Now, what is a famine? When there is a severe shortage of water. Let's summarize what we have learned till now. So what is a famine? When severe or shortage of water and food happens, and a lot of people die because of that. That is a famine. Why does that happen? That happens because of water shortage, crop failure. Crop failure is when there are natural causes, and when there is misuse of water, war, then climate change, right? How does it affect us? Water affects us in different ways. Water and food become scarce. Not a lot of food is available and water is available. Crops get destroyed. Loss of life due to hunger and malnutrition. Disease of people, right? How can we protect it? We can plant more trees. We can uh, manage water properly. We can use these ways. We can reduce water wastage. We can prevent wars. We can prevent global warming. These are the ways in which we can protect ourselves, right? So the picture that you saw in the starting, it was from Bengal in India in 1943. A lot of people died due to famine during that time. So this picture is from there. Now I want you to quickly pause this video and do these questions. These are the answers to these questions, the questions that I asked you in the beginning. So these are the answers to those questions. You can just tally your answers from here. Just check whether you have written the right answers. And if you have done something wrong, you can just now know what is the right answer. Thank you so much.